I'm Chronix from the most extreme wrestling, and I'm here today to talk to you about AEW and their big event, Double or Nothing. It was live, it was May 25th, it was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it sold out in 4 minutes. Now, if you're one of my subscribers who doesn't follow the current wrestling product, or you don't follow things outside of WWE, well, let me tell you quickly about what AEW is about. Cody Rhodes, he had left WWE, he wasn't happy with what was going on. Him and the Young Bucks, they got together with some business type people. They had a vision, they had an idea of creating something new. Not TNA, not Impact Wrestling, not a pre-existing company, but something new, something fresh, something to spice things up here in the wrestling world. So they came up with All Elite Wrestling, AEW. And this is like their big first, I would say this is their like WrestleMania 1 type situation. So this was a big night. It had a lot of hype going around it. There was a lot of love. People were saying, man, AEW is going to come in and they're going to take over WWE. They are going to have they're just going to blow them out of the water, and WWE is going to be suffocating and going out of business. And then you had people on the complete opposite side that were like, I mean, they just started a couple months ago and all we got is t-shirts. This is nothing but a t-shirt company. They're going to fail and it's going to be terrible. It's going to be horrible. So between these extreme viewpoints, there was me. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm just going to wait and see, because I hear a lot of promise, I see a lot of hate, but I know that they got a lot of key individuals in place. People within WWE were leaving. People like Dean Ambrose were leaving. Other wrestlers were trying to get out of their contracts. You know when a company hasn't had their big event yet, like their first, like, this is us type situation, that if you're sitting there thinking like, whoa, you have all these people leaving to go to AEW. AEW hasn't even really done anything. That's a lot of belief. That's a lot of hype. So the excitement around AEW was real. It was a big thing. It had people on both sides of the camp yelling and screaming at each other on the internet, which is just ridiculous. Me, I was waiting to see what happened, and guess what? May 25th, well, I didn't get to see what happened live because I was traveling, I was seeing my parents, I was in Central Texas. I didn't have that internet access, and I didn't have that cable access. Oh no, I had to wait until I got back. I got back here, I sat down, and I totally legally watched Double or Nothing. And I had some thoughts. Now, this is not going to be an in-depth review like I would normally do, going over every match and the storylines and that kind of stuff, but regardless of that, I had a lot of thoughts, and I wrote them down. This show reminded me of WCW in a good way. It made me think about, this is what WCW probably would have been like if it survived in 2019. And I'll tell you why I started to think that. Because the similarities and the callbacks, they just kept accumulating. For instance, the ring looked very WCW. I believe that was an 18-foot ring. I'm not sure. WWE uses a 20-foot ring. This did appear to be smaller. They had the logo on the center of the mat, like WCW. They even had the ropes. WWE has actual ropes, and WCW had more of a like a cable with a tube around it, I guess. I've been around those kind of rings. I've been around both rings with different kind of ropes, but this was the WCW style rope. They even had the big fat turnbuckle pads that are flat, very WCW. Also, the entrance, they had those poker chips that were laid out, which made me think of Halloween Havoc and all of these events that WCW would do where they would have objects to represent. So this was Double or Nothing. It was Las Vegas, so they had big poker chips, and they would zoom in and zoom out and, you know, on the entrances and really show the little props that they had. And WWE used to do some stuff like that as well, but you know what? They gotten cheap. I swear I can go back, almost 10 years, and the shows look exactly the same. If I was only looking at like a camera shot, and I just forgot about the wrestler that was in the picture. If you just took the wrestlers out, and you just showed a picture of the ring, maybe, or like the lighting or the stage, or the way that they move the cameras, man, it would be pretty hard to tell even what year it was, regardless of what pay-per-view it was. So it was cool that they had a specialized entrance. It had the tubes that were kind of like Impact Wrestling, but the rest of it reminded me more of a WWE, WCW style feel. So it was interesting, but going back to the WCW stuff, commentator's table was away from the ring. They had Japanese stars in matches, which you don't see a lot of in WWE. I'm just saying. It reminded me of the variety that you would get there back in the day. They had the pyros. Now, WWE doesn't so much do pyros, but what I mean by WCW pyros is WCW would just have random, almost seemingly pyros coming out as you come out to just keep it exciting. Whereas WWE had a very strategically planned out, it's going to hit on the music. The Dudley Boys, it's going to have the... Everything is going to be very just precise. Kane's going to do it like this and the fire's going to go up. It's just very, very precise and very timed out. Whereas this just felt like, it's a freaking party! Woo! You know, throwing stuff up in the air. You know what I'm talking about if you watch WCW at any point. Seeing people like The Natural, Dustin Rhodes, DDP, Glacier, and Chris Jericho, it just made me feel not like it was some kind of WCW reunion. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they were able to incorporate elements from WCW that were good elements. Well, I'm not saying Glacier was a big, pivotal point of WCW. I'm more focusing on things like the entrance and the pyros and the style and just the way that was put together. Triple H's little logo that Cody Rhodes hit the hammer through and then it exploded. That is the most WCW thing I've ever seen. He hit something with a hammer and it just exploded like it was a movie. I don't know, man. That felt very WCW. Now, as far as influences from WWE, the structure of the show, to me, felt like I was watching an NXT show or WWE style show. From the way they introduced the show, being like, and now AEW presents, and having the little logos. You could say that, well, that's just the way you put wrestling together, bro. That's just the way you do it. But man, for me, for somebody who does graphics and does camera work and has done stuff like that, it seemed very WWE flavored on camera angles and formattings and stuff like that. So I'm going to get to the camera angles later, but just the overall vibe and the flow was very much like an NXT or WWE show. You had people like JR, Earl Hebner, you had those diamond plate steps, and you had Chris Jericho. Those are really the only things that I can say made me think of WWE. Well, other than John Moxley coming over, Dean Ambrose, I don't know why I just blanked on his name, but taking elements that was very successful from WCW and from WWE and kind of incorporating them, not stealing, not retreading, but giving you a sense of familiarity that I felt was necessary when you're trying to attract a bigger audience. And AEW has got a television deal on WCW's old network. So WCW went off the air, what was it, May of 2001? And later this year, in 2019, 18 years later, oh my goodness, they're about to be on TV. Now, the good things I'm going to say about the show, I liked all that stuff that I mentioned already. The matches were pretty good. Most of them were really freaking good. I'm going to say that. But there was some times where I was like, that was rough. And that was far and few in between. I will say that. But there was times where I thought, I don't know if I would have saw that mistake in WWE. For instance, with the camera angles, there was several camera mistakes. It was almost like the guy doing the camera selection didn't know what was going to be happening next, which goes into some other details I will get to. But first, when they would follow the camera up to the stage and to the entrance, they had two entrances. And there were times where the camera selector, the guy in the booth that's deciding which cameras to select, thought the guy was going to come out of this one, but he came out of that one. There was times where they should have used a different camera angle where it just looked really indie. The camera selections they would use, you know, sometimes you would catch a move from the wrong angle and it's just like, ooh, they probably should have used a different angle on that because it looked kind of bad. I really did like the swooping camera angle they were using. I think if they can really get that down with that jib or that crane that they were using, whatever that was, I think that will really add to the show and give it a different feel. But there was several camera mistakes. There was several audio mistakes from microphones that were screeching or whatever. I don't want to be too hard on it, but this is their first big show that sets the stage. So from my perspective, for a show in 2019, it's got to come across as almost flawless. And I know there's going to be mistakes, but I felt like there was more mistakes than I would have been able to deal with. If I was the director or if I was in charge of the camera guys, I would have been yelling at them by the end of the night. Even the still photo photographers, I would have talked to them. I don't think I would have yelled at them. Well, I don't know. Was it the camera guy's fault that they selected the wrong camera? Probably not so much. They actually did a pretty good job. I think it really goes on whoever was at the end of the line selecting the cameras. So if you were that guy, I'm sorry. But man, that's got to improve, especially if it's going to be on TV, it's going to be competing with other shows that are live. You just can't be making those mistakes because other shows aren't making those mistakes. That's the point. So, where even was I? Talked about the camera guys. This was the problem I had with the camera guys. No. I was about to let that slide, and now I just remembered why I had an issue with some of the camera guys. This is a small detail, and I swear it's going to sound like I'm nitpicking, but these are the things that WWE would not make a mistake on. You would sometimes see the camera guys in the shots. Not always a big deal, but on HD television in 2019, I don't think seeing camera guys in every shot or most of the shots is a good look. That doesn't bother me as much as when the camera guys look bored. I was several times when I looked over and I saw the camera guy like this. And he was just like holding himself up. I don't know, man. You either got to wear long black sleeves or you got to be out of the way where nobody can see you when you get the reverse shot, or you got to just not look bored. That bothers me when camera guys look bored or they look like they're resting. If you look like you're bored and you're resting, that's just wrong. It's just wrong. You can't look bored. Does the referee look bored? No. Does the commentators look bored? No. I don't care what anybody says. if you were ringside, you were part of the show. And if you look bored, it's a bad look. The ring announcers don't need to look bored. The cable pullers don't need to look bored. They need to be invisible, for one thing. But if you can be visible and you are visible, you damn sure better not be bored. Now, I saw some of the photographers that were taking photos. They looked into it, or they looked like, they'd see a move and you kind of like saw their face like, dang. So my point is, when you saw them, they were into it. When you saw some of the camera guys at some points, they were like, oh. That's all I gotta say, man. I think it's easily fixed. And I'm sure that most people didn't notice, but me, have been doing that, being involved in that kind of stuff, those are the kind of things that set me off. So understand why that bothers me, because that's something that I do. And when I'm ringside and I see a photographer, like one of my photographers or another camera guy, and he's over there looking bored, I'm like, hey, stop it. So, yes, that is all the notes that I actually wrote down. So let me fold this little thing up. That's my notes. I like the AEW. I'll give you this note. Actually, I think I just showed my age. See, people don't be giving people notes. Anybody younger than my generation, you don't even give notes. Look, back in my day, you didn't have a cell phone when you was in school, so you couldn't just slide into somebody's DM. You had to hand them one of these bitches. You had to been like, yo, I put some love into this thing right here. And AEW, boy, they put some love into that show. Man, it was a good show. Of any criticism I can throw out, it was a good show and it felt like it had heart. The Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes match was fantastic. The Chris Jericho build-up was great. It was a good show, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to what they're going to do next. They're going to be on TV. This is a big deal. Are they going to overtake WWE? I don't think so. But WWE superstars were watching this, and several WWE superstars want to go to AEW. So it tells you a lot. When I'm bringing up these WCW comparisons, yeah, you got to throw that in there too. The fact that people want to leave WWE and go to this new, fresh upstart and be a part of something is inspiring. It reminds me back in the ECW days when you had people coming back and forth, and people was in ECW believed that they were doing something impactful and changing the future. And they did, because WWE ended up lifting those ideas and taking those superstars, so they did make an impact. All these years later, people didn't forget ECW had ECW stars up in AEW, and Tommy Dreamer up in that pre-show or whatever. So I'm excited for the future, but as far as AEW Double or Nothing, I'm going to give it a whole double thumbs up. It was a good show, and I will catch you guys next time.